gemologist, heiress to the Bennett jewelry empire, currently scrubbing baseboards. For 4 months, she endured the insults of a woman who treated her like a ghost, until that woman invited her to a high-society gala as a joke. She had no idea she just invited the only person on earth who could prove her life was a lie. Moya Bennett's hands were stained with silver polish as she buffed the Sterling's antique tea set, her face tight with focus. GIA graduate gemologist, master appraiser, heiress to a billion-dollar legacy, playing housemaid. "You missed the tarnish on the spout," Beatrice Sterling said, clicking her designer heels against the hardwood as she walked past. The social climber was adjusting a necklace that Moya knew, at a glance, was a high-quality synthetic. "Actually, Moya," Beatrice turned, a cruel glint in her eyes, "I'm hosting a high society and stones party tomorrow night. You should come." Moya looked up from the floor. Beatrice's expression was a mask of fake generosity. "Wear that little diamond pendant I saw in your room," Beatrice smirked. "It'll be adorable watching you explain your jewelry collection to people who actually own some." Her friends, draped in silk and borrowed emeralds, erupted in laughter from the hallway. Expensive perfumes, shallow hearts, cruel entertainment. Moya returned to her polishing, saying nothing, but in her mind, she was already opening her private vault. The 10-carat cushion cut, no. The star of a Lowen, the very heirloom Beatrice thought she had successfully hidden. Let's see who's laughing when the poor maid walks in wearing the one stone Beatrice would kill to own. Moya's fingers moved with rhythmic precision. The rough bristles of the scrub brush a sharp contrast to the velvet-lined world she was born into. She was currently wrist-deep in soapy water, cleaning the grime from the Sterling's foyer, while Beatrice hovered above like a vulture in Valentino. "Look at those hands, Moya," Beatrice sneered, pointing a perfectly manicured finger at Moya's reddened knuckles. "So thick and unrefined. It's clear you were born for manual labor, not for touching anything of value." She laughed, a shrill sound that echoed off the vaulted ceilings. "I'm almost afraid to let you near my jewelry box, though I doubt you'd even recognize a real diamond if it hit you." Moya didn't flinch. Her eyes remained fixed on the reflection in the polished marble, tracking Beatrice's movement toward the study where the biometric safe was hidden behind a landscape painting. She knew the code. She just needed the opportunity. "Tell you what," Beatrice continued, her voice dripping with mock pity. "I'm hosting a gala tomorrow. You should attend. It'll be a charity case of my own, watching a peasant try to navigate a room of royalty. Just try not to get grease on the carpets." Moya squeezed the sponge, her gaze cold. "I wouldn't miss it for the world, ma'am." The star of a Lowen wasn't just a diamond. It was the Bennett soul, a 50-carat marvel of celestial blue that had anchored her family's legacy for 3 generations. Moya closed her eyes, the scent of floor wax fatting into the memory of a cold, rainy night 5 months ago. It had been the night of the centennial auction, a high-security event that should have been impenetrable. But a sophisticated bypass of the Bennett vaults had left her father broken and the family's reputation in tatters. The police called it a professional heist with no trail, but Moya had seen the minute signature left behind. A faint, microscopic scratch on the display casing that only a Sterling-designed tool could produce. While the insurance companies settled and the world moved on, Moya traced the laundered funds directly to Beatrice Sterling's sudden, unexplained rise in the social ranks. She wasn't here for a paycheck or a career in domestic service. She was here because the star was hidden somewhere in this house, crying out for its rightful owner. Every tile she scrubbed brought her 1 inch closer to the safe, and every insult she endured was a debt Beatrice would soon pay in full. The pantry was the only place in the Sterling mansion where the air didn't feel choked with pretension. Moya sat on a crate of imported water, watching Elias, the veteran butler, meticulously polish a tray of tarnished silver. He had been with the family for 20 years, his back slightly bent from the weight of secrets he was never paid to tell. "You shouldn't let her get to you, child," Elias murmured without looking up. "The louder the thunder, the emptier the clouds." Moya leaned in, her voice a low conspiratorial hum. "She acts like she owns the world, Elias, but the world doesn't accept late payments." Elias paused, his rag hovering over a soup spoon. He looked at her, his eyes weary but sharp. "You've noticed, then? The creditors calling the house lines, the lost electricity bills, the way Mr. Sterling looks like he's walking toward a gallows every time he opens the mail. This gala isn't a celebration. It's a desperate play for investors. They're standing on a glass floor and it's already cracking." Moya felt a surge of cold satisfaction. Beatrice wasn't just a thief, she was a fraud. The Sterlings were broke, and they were using her family's stolen legacy as their final lifeline. "The higher they climb," Moya whispered, "the harder the shatter." Julian Sterling stood in the doorway of the library, watching the girl he knew only as a maid. She was supposed to be dusting the curios, but she was transfixed by the pigeon blood ruby resting on the mantel. He watched as she tilted her head, her eyes narrowing with a clinical intensity that had nothing to do with housekeeping. "It's a Burmese magok," she whispered, unaware of his presence. "Unheated, 6 carats, but the silk inclusions are too linear for the 1920s setting it's in. It's a replacement stone." Julian's breath hitched. He had paid $50,000 to a specialist just to hear those exact words last month. "A replacement?" he asked, stepping into the light. Moya stiffened, the microfiber cloth snapping back into her hand as she dropped into a practiced, submissive slouch. "I wouldn't know, sir. I was just admiring the red." Julian moved closer, his gaze searching her face. He saw the Yale-level intellect hiding behind the servant's mask. "Don't. My wife might be blind to the people in her house, Moya, but I am not. Housemaids don't discuss silk inclusions or unheated magoks. Who are you?" Moya met his eyes, her submissiveness vanishing for a fleeting, lethal second. "Someone who knows exactly what things are worth, Mr. Sterling. Do you?" The tension in the kitchen was thick enough to cut with a jeweler's saw. Beatrice had been screaming at the caterers for an hour, but it was the news she dropped while clutching her champagne flute that made the blood drain from Moya's face. "The great appraiser is confirmed," Beatrice boasted to her reflection. "Alistair Thorne himself is coming to verify the collection. Tomorrow, the world will finally see that the Sterlings possess the finest stones in the country." Moya leaned against the cold industrial sink, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Alistair Thorne, her mentor. The man who had spent 10 years teaching her how to spot a fracture in a diamond's soul. He wouldn't just recognize her. He would know the second he looked at her that she wasn't there to serve hors d'oeuvres. The game had just shifted from a quiet heist to a public execution. If Thorne saw her in a maid's uniform, he'd call her name before she could even clear a plate. There was no more hiding in the shadows, no more playing the invisible servant. If she was going to be exposed, she would do it on her own terms, in a way that would burn Beatrice Sterling's world to the ground. The ballroom was a sea of shimmering silk and blinding light, a temple built to vanity that Moya entered with her head held high. She wore a simple, off-the-rack black dress, her hair pulled back in a severe, elegant bun. Tucked beneath the modest collar was a heavy pendant, the fake necklace she had intentionally left in her staff quarters for Beatrice to find. Beatrice spotted her instantly, her laughter cutting through the classical music like a serrated blade. She swept across the floor, beckoning a circle of socialites to witness the spectacle. "Oh, look everyone, our little Moya actually showed up," Beatrice announced, her voice dripping with performative pity. She reached out, flicking the pendant against Moya's collarbone with a manicured nail. "And she's wearing her heirloom. Isn't it charming? It's a tragedy what some people consider treasure. It looks like something you'd find in a gift shop at the airport." The elite inner circle erupted in snickering, eyeing Moya's peasant jewelry with practiced disdain. Moya stood perfectly still, a predator camouflaged as prey. She didn't look at the mocking faces. She looked at the door, waiting for the one man who knew that the stone against her skin was currently the most dangerous object in the room. The heavy oak doors swung open, and the room fell into a reverent hush as Alistair Thorne stepped into the light. The great appraiser moved with the clinical grace of a man who held the fortunes of empires in his loop. Beatrice practically sprinted toward him, her neck craned to display the shimmering weight of her crown jewel. "Mr. Thorne," she gushed, blocking his path. Please tell these people the truth about this stone. Verify the sterling legacy. Thorne didn't even glance at her throat. His eyes, sharp as a diamond-tipped blade, swept the room until they locked onto the girl in the simple black dress. The crowd parted like a retreating tide as he bypassed Beatrice entirely. The socialite's smile froze, her hand still clutching her pendant as Thorne reached Moya. To the collective gasp of the elite, the most powerful man in the jewelry world didn't just greet her, he descended. He dropped to one knee, bowing his silvered head. "My deepest apologies for the delay," he said, his voice echoing in the absolute silence. "The industry has been dark without its brightest light. It is an honor to see you again, Ms. Bennett." Beatrice's face drained of color, her hand trembling against the stone Thorne had just snubbed. "Ms. Bennett? No, you're mistaken. She's a maid. She's a nobody." Moya stepped forward, the submissive slouch vanishing as she reached for the fake necklace at her own throat. With a sharp tug, the simple cord snapped, revealing a stone that seemed to swallow the ballroom's light and breathe it back out as fire. "This is the Star of Aloan," Moya's voice rang out, cold and commanding. "The stone your husband acquired after it was stolen from my family's vault." She turned to the stunned crowd, her gaze leveling Beatrice. "Alistair didn't look at your necklace, Beatrice, because he doesn't waste time on industrial glass. That $10 million piece you're wearing is a high-leaded fake, just like the lifestyle you've built on credit and theft." Thorne stood, moving to Moya's side like a silent sentinel. "Allow me to introduce the real guest of honor," he announced. "Moya Bennett, CEO of Bennett International and the world's foremost authority on precious gems." Beatrice's social circle recoiled as if she were contagious. The Queen of Stones had arrived, and the sterling's glass empire had just shattered at her feet. The Star of Aloan pulsed against Moya's palm, its celestial blue depths finally home. As the authorities led a hysterical Beatrice from the ballroom, her diamonds clattering like worthless marbles on the floor, the suffocating weight of the sterling lies evaporated. The socialites who had laughed at Moya's peasant hands now scrambled for the exits, terrified of the woman who held their reputations in her silent gaze. Julian Sterling stepped through the wreckage of his former life, stopping only when he reached Moya. He didn't look at the $50 million gem in her hand. He looked at the woman who had dared to uncover the truth. "I spent years suspecting the rot in this house," he said quietly, "but I never had the courage to cut it out. You saved more than just a stone tonight." Moya signaled Elias, who appeared with 2 glasses of vintage crystal. No silver polish, no hidden motives. She handed a glass to Julian, their fingers brushing, a contact of mutual respect. "To the things that actually matter," Moya said, her voice warm but steady. "To authenticity." They raised their glasses as the sun began to rise over the estate, the light catching the Star of Aloan and casting a brilliant, honest blue across the room. "I have completed the narrative for your story. Would you like me to help you create a series of hook-driven video scripts or social media captions based on these chapters to help promote the story?"